breathe into your heart this wonderful divine affirmation, this wonderful holy thought. There is only one power, one presence in the universe and in me, in my life, in my mind, body, spirit, soul, God, the good. Bring it to your heart and ask God within you, what does this mean? What is this really referring to? It means there is not God and, or God or. Simply God is. God is who we are. God is the one and only life, light, love, peace, joy, abundance, wholeness. Everything we can imagine and more is the reality of what we call God. Whatever word works for you is fine. Universe, mind, first cause. Whatever phrase or word we have for God is more than okay. Breathe that in through your nose, into your lungs. Let that energy flow forth into every cell, every tissue, every atom of your being, every thought we have today. Our thoughts, our prayers. There is only one power, one presence, God, the good. And so it is. Amen.
My song, it'll help you believe in tomorrow. Hear my song, it'll show you the way you can shine. Hear my song, it was made for the times when you don't know where to go. Listen to the song that I sing. You'll be fine. Child, I know you're frightened and your throat's parched and dry. But just trust in Papa singing and the gift tomorrow's bringing. Trust it, don't ask why. Just hide in my arms and I'll tell you the things that you know but forget, the lies no one ever could sell you. I know that it's hard, but don't give up yet. My song, it'll help you believe in tomorrow. Hear my song, it'll show you the way you can shine. Hear my song, it was made for the time somehow that soon there will be light. Hold on, hold fast. That's not enough for some, but trust the light will come and we'll get past. You and Papa safe at last. Hear my song, it'll help you get through till tomorrow. Hear my song, it'll help us survive all this pain. Hear my song, it's the one thing I have that has never let me down. Listen to the song that I sing, listen to the words in my heart, listen to the hope I can bring, and we'll start to grow and shine. Listen to the song that I sing, and trust me, we'll be fine.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Barbara. So I was doing theater in Toronto a number of years ago, and an acting couple up there invited me to their lake house for the weekend. We had a time off there doing the show. And we were sitting around, and I knew that they were also getting paid minimum equity rate. Back then was not a whole lot of money. But they were living really well, and I knew them a little bit. And I said, so with your minimum equity contract, how? And they said, well, that's really interesting. We were, a few years back, they were chatting with a friend who said to them, I have a new endeavor I'd like for you to invest in. And being actors, or they considered to be poor actors, they said, well, we don't really have a lot of money. So they were debating with themselves, and finally they said, you know what, this feels right. Even if we lose it, it just feels right to do this. So let's do this. He's a friend, you know, $500, you know, we'll get that back, I guess, but let's do it. It just feels right. And so they did, and they invested in this person's new endeavor. And the endeavor turned out to be Trivial Pursuits. And that's how they had a lake house. And when they had a lot of money, and today they are still, I'm sure, taking it in. All because they said, let's go with our gut and say yes. They said, we don't know what's going to happen, but something inside of us says, fine, we'll do this and we'll get through this. How many people here play or have played Trivial Pursuits? You help them with their lake house. They thank you so much. We'll give them a call and see when we can go up there. Well, those of us who do play Trivial Pursuits know that for many years, the longest English word was 28 letters long. Anybody know what that was? You played, right? You don't remember. Anti-disestablishmentarianism. Anybody know what that means? You know what it means? I thought you were just shaking your head like you did. What it means is the belief that opposes removing the ties between church and state, which is nothing that really comes up in conversation around here very much. To make it longer, one could say that they're living their lives here in Washington non-anti-disestablishmentarianistically. That would be gilding the lily a little bit, I think. Scientists have coined a word for the largest human protein that is composed of more than 189,000 letters. And it takes 3.5 hours to pronounce it. For those of you who don't have a life, you can actually listen to the guy doing it on YouTube. But that word is not in the dictionary, is considered to be ridiculously long and not really considered to be an actual word by the experts. The biggest English words are pseudo-hypoparathyroidism, which I take it has something to do with the thyroid. But pseudo, does that mean kind of, sort of? Pseudo, I know.
Sort of.
Wouldn't.
Cancels it out.
Pneumono-ultramicroscopic silico-volcanic coniosis, which means lung disease caused by inhaling volcanic dust. Again, nothing we really use around here. The longest legitimate word replacing anti-disestablishmentarianism, according to the Oxford Dictionary, and now the Guinness Book of World Records, is on the front of your bulletin. Anybody want to take a shot at that? Anybody, you know how to pronounce that? Floccinaucinihilipilification. Took me a half an hour to learn how to say that without tripping over it. Floccinaucinihilipilification. Together? It'll take a little while too. The H in the middle is silent. Floccinaucinihilipilification. What does it mean? It means to consider something or someone as worthless. Such a long word for something so negative, isn't it? So using it in a sentence, one would say, when it comes to doing housework, my new husband suffers from floccinaucinihilipilification. Which sounds better maybe than I married a slug. Again, such a big word for something so nasty, really. And while big words sound very impressive because they're very difficult to say, often it's the smallest words that are the biggest words spiritually. Therefore, more difficult to express or to really say, what is the definition of this word? The biggest and most difficult word in the English language is love. Now, in English, we only have one word for it. In Greek, there are many words for love. But I think perhaps it's one of the most misunderstood words ever, and the dictionary was absolutely no help at all. I went to the Oxford Dictionary and they gave a number of different definitions. One was profoundly tender, passionate affection for another person. Okay. Another one was a feeling of warm personal attachment or deep affection as for a parent, child, or friend. The third was sexual passion or desire. Fourth was a term of endearment, as in, would you like to see a movie, love? This is a British dictionary, of course. So what we have, we might consider to be, according to the definitions here, merely a chemical reaction that another person is having toward another person. Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of Unity, defined love as the pure essence of being that binds together the whole human family, the inner quality that sees good everywhere and in everybody. Love is a great harmonizer and healer that adjusts all misunderstandings and makes your life happy, healthy, harmonious, and free. That's a lovely definition. That's really great. But he doesn't really talk about how does it work. How does love really bring all this healing and harmony and making our lives what it needs to be? I had a boss once that was nearly impossible to deal with. Nothing with her was ever right. Nobody was ever right. She blamed everybody for anything that was her issue. Anybody ever have a boss like that? Yeah, I think we've all had at some point. Maybe you have a family member who's like that, or maybe you're married to someone like that. Now, at the time I was working in this place, I was a fairly new truth student, and I was taking the 12 powers of humankind, and we were that week working on love. So I decided I was going to love her. That was so hard. I really didn't know how to do that. I kept trying to apply what Fillmore was saying and trying to see this woman as a child of God, but she was making it impossible for me. So I went into meditation. I said, God, I need your help here. How do I do this? How do I use this love to take care of this woman? I didn't mean to do that, but it's what I really felt at the time. And I heard the voice of Spirit say, look at her as a 5-year-old. Picture her as a 5-year-old child. And so I did that. I saw a very scared, terrified little girl. And I began to divinely detach from any sense of personal attack that I was getting from her, and saw her as a woman who was terrified of losing what she had. I later found out that she got the restaurant, it was a restaurant we were working in, she got the restaurant in a divorce settlement from her husband, but she had only ever been a waitress, and she never had run a business ever. And so she was terrified, because she didn't know what she was doing. So I began to bless her and see her as safe, see her as prosperous, and see her as calm through the day. I also stopped talking to other employees about her. I said, I'm only going to speak with love if I speak at all. And do you know what happened? She changed. She changed because I changed. I was the one who had to change to see a change in her. I changed how I saw another child of God, and she became what I knew and what I saw in my meditation as a child of God. She changed toward me, but she was still nasty to everybody else. And they began to look at me, well, what did you do? You know, they thought something sneaky was going on. I went, I don't know. The change I want to see in my life begins with the change I'm willing to make in my heart first. The change I want to see in my life begins with the change in my heart first. So I have to do the changing if I want this out here to reflect that. Am I willing to love an unlovable boss or employee? Am I willing to bless a snarky sales clerk who couldn't care less about you or their work? Am I willing to let my family be who they are, even if I have to stand back at a safe distance from their toxicity to me? Am I willing to lovingly discuss my needs with a Floccinaucinihilipilification spouse? Am I willing to go there to find what I need in my life? Am I willing to let go of a belief system that sees others as out to get me? There's me and then there's them. In my counseling with couples through the years, the major problem that I have seen over and over again is actually the easiest to deal with, is how often do we say, I love you? I would think that in most of the couples that I have seen, the major issue has been lack of communicating, I love you. With men, especially older guys, my dad's generation and above, the issue is always one of communicating or saying the words. My dad's generation has a hard time with saying, not showing it. My dad always showed it, but saying the words were very difficult. And my mom needed to hear them. So what happened, she began to shut down and wouldn't talk at all. Well, if you don't know what's wrong, I'm not going to tell you. And the wall gets bigger and bigger and bigger as the years go by. So we need to tell each other that we love each other and why. Sometimes the why is needed as well. So sometimes I'll ask each of the couple to share 3 things that they love about the other person, and 9 times out of 10, the other person has never heard at least one of them before. I had no idea. No idea whatsoever. The very people we say we love sometimes really don't know it. A wise author wrote, loving others is a commitment to holding a high vision of them even as time and familiarity take their toll. We forget to see the miraculously divine individual they are within. We keep forgetting that this person that we share our lives with is an astonishing person, is God in the flesh. The person you share your life, the people you love the most, are God showing up in that way. If, as 1 John says, God is love, and we are creations of God, then we are gods. We are godlings, if you will. Growing to the full realization that we are this powerful being, living, breathing miracles of God herself. My friend Carlo said to me, he was in meditation one day and he heard the voice of God very clearly say, "You're my favorite." He said, "Well, thanks. But what about my mom? What about my brother? And what about all my congregants? And what about my friends? Oh, they're my favorite too. We are all God's favorite. You are the most loved, favorite being of the universe. But we forget that. This whole planet was designed just for us, for our joy, for our contentment, to live the life that we came to live, but we forget. We have to see that we are divinely wonderful, beautiful, powerful, compassionate, perfect, love itself. Now remember, perfect doesn't mean that I don't have anything to work on. I came here to work on things. We all came to work on things. How do we know we still have things to work on? Do you have a body? You still have things to work on. I still have things to work on. But we're perfect, we're complete. There's nothing missing from this being. We just need to turn it on and turn it up. If you cannot acknowledge that you deserve all the good right here and now, that you don't have to earn and strain your way into getting these things, that all the abundance, all the joy, all the love of God is right here, right now, then that's the work we have to do to awaken to the truth. It's already here. I just have to say yes to it. I have to give the universe permission to move it into my life. As that great metaphysician RuPaul says, you can't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love somebody else? We have to love. We have to begin right here with me. Another issue that I counsel on all the time, it seems especially in the city, is the lack of available mates. You don't have to raise your hand. How many people here are looking for somebody? There's always at least half of the group looking for somebody. And the other half have given up. I said, I just can't do it. Well, not the half. If you're with your mate, say, thank you, honey. I'm so glad you're in my life. But if you're looking for somebody, I have a question for you, and this is a really hard question. Would you date you? Would you bring yourself home to your family? I mean, you know, if they didn't know you. Would you want to make love to you? Would you want to marry you? The room got so quiet. I once asked a woman these questions. She burst into tears. She said, oh, dear God, no. There's some work. There's some work I got to do there. You and I have to fall in love with the gorgeous God beings we are if anybody's going to fall in love with us. You've got to fall in love with you and treat yourself so well. Because when we do that, we tell others, this is the way I deserve to be treated. We're treated generally the way we really believe we should be treated. And if we're not being treated well, say, I need to redo this. And I let you go, child of God, and I need to bring something else. The first thing I need to bring is love to me. Years ago, there was this Dove beauty sketches on YouTube. I don't know if anybody remembers seeing these. It was so powerful. They did a whole series, and one of the series they did was 4 women were describing how they looked to a forensic artist behind a curtain. They couldn't see the women, but they just described themselves to the artist, and the artist would draw. He drew their faces just from what they said. And then they had women, these 4 women, chat with strangers for a few minutes, and the strangers then described the same women to the artist, who then drew the women again, but from the stranger's perspective. The stranger's descriptions looked more like the women than the women's own descriptions of themselves. One woman was rather shocked when she saw the 2 sketches side by side, and she quietly said, I guess I have some work to do. How do you see yourself? Very often we'll talk about the flaws. And that is what we see in the mirror, not the beautiful child of God that we are. Between birth and death, you know, you see on the gravestone, you see the years, birth, death. You know that dash in between? That's love. That's how much love have we shared? How much love have we accepted? How much joy did we give? How much joy did we accept? Oscar Wilde said, to love oneself is the beginning of a lifelong romance. So how do we do that? How can I love myself more? Where's that disconnect? Forgiveness is the number one key. We've got to forgive. We've got to let go of those who spoke an untruth about you. Doesn't matter how long ago it was, because if you're still holding on to it, it's as fresh as if it happened this morning. The truth we have to remember is they weren't talking about you, they were projecting their own stuff on you. They were fearful of their own stuff, so they had to take it out and put it on you. Unfortunately, it doesn't stay. Well, unfortunately for them. But what it does is it tells us a lie, and we buy into that lie over and over again. You were and you are a completely blameless creation of spirit, who was talked out of loving yourself by people who didn't love themselves. And those people were taught by people who didn't love themselves, and those people were taught by others who didn't love themselves. It goes back generation after generation. We have to nip it in the bud and stop all that. Louise Hay said, no matter what the problem seems to be, there's only one thing I ever work on with anybody, and that is loving the self. Loving ourselves works miracles in our lives. When you begin to love yourself, you begin to love God. You begin to know God. You begin to realize I am a God being and I deserve the good. I deserve my good. I deserve all the good that God has for me. I deserve all the good God has for me. Affirm that with me. I deserve all the good God has for me. Breathe that in. That's the truth. Jesus was asked, what's the most powerful commandment? What is the most important commandment in Scripture? He said, love God, love your neighbor, love yourself. You got that, you don't need anything else. If you got that, you got the whole Bible. You got every spiritual teaching on the planet. If you get love God, love your neighbor, love yourself, it's all the same thing. As we do the work of forgiving others, we have to forgive ourselves. Sometimes this is really even harder than forgiving others. You've got to forgive yourself. You've got to let yourself off the hook for anything that you think you did. You've never done anything that can keep the love of God from you. You only, and I only, keep the love of God from me with my belief system, with my thinking, with the feelings and the words that I use. I keep shoving God away. We have all made mistakes. Some of them have been doozies. Some of them are little. But as Jesus told the adulterous woman, I don't condemn you, meaning God doesn't condemn you. Go your way and rethink your life. What can you do better? What can you do different? That's all. There's no condemnation. There's no big negative thing tied around that. Is what you're doing in your daily life working? And if it isn't, what can I do instead? Your unforgiving attitude towards yourself is just making life a living hell. Let yourself off the hook. A psychologist was teaching a stress management class, and she raised a glass of water. And everybody expected she'd be asking the half full, half empty thing. Instead, with a smile on her face, she said, how heavy is this glass of water? And some people were guessing anywhere from 8 to 20 ounces. She replied, the absolute weight of the water doesn't matter. What matters is how long do I hold it. If I hold it for a minute, it's not a problem. If I hold it for an hour, I get an ache. If I hold it for a day, my arm is going to be numb and paralyzed. In each case, the weight of the water doesn't change, but the longer I hold it, the heavier it becomes. And that's what self-condemnation is. The longer you hold your weight in your heart, the heavier your life becomes. Let it go. Whatever you're holding about yourself, let it go, because it's not the truth. It's not how spirit, it is not how the universe sees you. Give it to God. Give it over. Let it go. You don't need it. You never needed it. But for some reason you kept carrying it. I kept carrying it. You did nothing unforgivable. Our lives will work when we let our hearts reveal the truth. That everything is right here. There's only one power, one presence, one God, waiting for us to say yes, waiting to give God permission. A teacher in an adult education writing class told her students, write, I love you in 25 words or less without using the words, I love you. She gave them 15 minutes, and a woman in class spent about 10 minutes looking at the ceiling, wriggling in her seat, chewing her pencil. She was racking her brain for the answer. Finally, said, I gotta go to my heart. My head's not really working. I gotta go here. And it came in a flash, and the last 5 minutes, she wrote frantically. And at the end, the class read what they had written. And the woman shared this. I've seen worse hairdos than that, honey. These cookies are hardly burnt at all. You look tired. Come here, I'll rub your feet. I love you in 25 words or less. Love in action. So this week I have an assignment for you. This is tricky. For some of us, this will keep us off Facebook for a week. Only talk love this week. Only love, no matter what you see on television. Perhaps you can't watch the news this week then, which is fine. So this week we only speak compassion, we only speak respect, only speak out of our heart of spirit. What would spirit say here? And then we speak that. If we don't have anything good to say, we just don't say anything. If you need to, bless and walk away. You don't have to stay in that toxic environment. Simply bless it and leave. But don't respond with anything less than love this week. Simple, yeah. Easy, no. Not at all. This is not easy work. And that's why we have this few people. As opposed to a Baptist church that said, it's somebody else's problem. It's the devil. Oh, thank God. No, we're the ones who have to take responsibility for it. If you're willing to release negativity, the universe will bring into your life this incredible power, this loving, creative, kind, supportive, and joyful energy that we can use this week for something other than complaining. Again, it's just a week, and then you can go back to your crappy old self. That's fine, if you choose to. But I think we're going to like the new loving self that we are, and we want to continue with it. And the second is like this. I want you to, at brunch, with your family, your friends, your partner, your spouse, I want you to share 3 things that you love about that person. Just, even if they're not here, call them and say, here are 3 things I love about you, and tell them why. It's really important to tell them why. Why do I love this about you? As Swami Vivekananda shared, with the love of God will come the love of everyone in the universe. When the soul acquires the bliss of this supreme love, it also begins to see God in everything. Our hearts will thus become an eternal fountain of love. I love John Shelby's poem uses the phrase, love wastefully. Throw the love away, throw it out there. You cannot get rid of it. It's like a fountain that just keeps coming and coming and coming. Love wastefully this week. Just love people, bless them, move away from them if they're toxic, but let that love energy flow forth. So I invite you to close your eyes, breathe into your heart. Breathe love. Let go of anything that is not of love. We are divine love ourselves. That's the absolute truth. And as we go within, we sing our meditation song. Lead me to the light. Lead me to the light. Help me to make it through. Lead me to the light. Lead me to the light. breathe in that light, that love, the peace and joy of God. Know that you are in a safe place to do so. That safe place is your heart, where no one else can get into. No one else has access. Only you and God, in your oneness, are in charge and at work of your life. What words have I been using about my life? Are they positive, uplifting, successful, joy-filled, love-filled, or negating, limited, and filled with lack? Today I change my mind, I change my words, I change my actions. Today I know I am divine love. In full expression, I am literally the love of God. How will I show up for that this week? What words do I need to release from my vocabulary, from my way of speaking? What do I need to replace them with? The truth is, I am loved, supported, and nurtured by the entire universe. I live in a friendly, abundantly blessed universe. And today I speak that truth. I am divine love and expression. I begin with myself. In the words of the song, I love myself just the way I am. There's nothing I need to change. I'll always be the perfect me. There's nothing to rearrange. I am perfect, complete, nothing missing. It's my awakening to the truth that will change the outer. I bless this body temple, see it with love. The love of God heals my mind and body. I am whole. Breathe that truth into every cell, every atom, every part of your being. The love of God heals my mind and body. I am whole. I also remember the love of God prospers me. My life overflows with good. The love of God prospers me. My life overflows with good. Picture yourself successful. What are you doing? What did you come to the planet to do? Is it sitting by a lake? Is it performing? Is it doing the work that you love to do? What would make your life wonderful? That's a God picture. You have everything you need within you to achieve it. My life overflows with good. In the quiet of our being, just for a few moments, we let go. Focus on the word love. Feel it radiating through your heart into your body, out to the world. I am loved by God. a breath. Breathe out. Breathe in. Bring yourself back into this room, this time, this place. And as we do, we sing our way back with the greatest thing in all my life